Well, hi there, folks. Let's get the social media wound up here. Let's get all the social media keyboard warriors all fired up with this one. Bale grazing is better than unrolling your hay for certain things. Now, when I say this is coming from a podcast called the Working Cows Podcast with Clay. I forget Clay's last name. Really good podcast. Really love it. And he had a guy, and I'm pretty sure, so I listened to several of his podcasts all in a row, so I can't be exact on which person said it, but it was Ultra High Density Grazing Podcast. He had a series of 3 of them all pretty close together. And he had a guy on that actually said, bale grazing is better than bale unrolling if you have certain goals in mind. So bale grazing tends to damage the ground where they are grazed a lot more than bale unrolling does. But 2 years after you bale graze, you get far better growth, far better regrowth than where you would if you unrolled your hay. Now, like I say, I know that's going to get a lot of folks wound up. I know Greg, Judy, and a lot of other really popular people say to do this, but here's what I mean by that. It depends on your goals. I know there's people on Facebook that will argue till they're blue in the face, till you're blue in the face and ready to throw the computer out the window, that bale grazing is the worst thing in the world. And when I show you this ground right here, you might agree with me. You're like, what the heck is that? Is that corn stubble, wheat stubble, soybean stubble? No, that's just open dirt with some stubble from some first succession volunteer plant species. I don't call them weeds because everything has a purpose and everything will go away with proper management. But I heard that and it was like an aha moment. I go, I've seen this before. In one of my fields, which maybe I'll go over there and I can show you guys I'll show you guys the progress from several years ago. I bale grazed a couple places several years ago, 2 years ago at this point, 3 years ago, somewhere in there. And I can show you guys, because the first year after, I got no regrowth. I got this, and I was very upset. And I asked Steve Kenyon on one of his networking nights, I asked him about it. He said, well, it's proper management. If I left too much thatch, if I left too much extra hay from these round bales, then what would happen is it would take too long to grow in the springtime because I would have to grow up through the thatch layer with all of my grass species. So that's just like putting mulch around a garden bed or around your house. Grasses don't grow immediately. Plants don't grow immediately when you mulch. It usually takes a year or 2 to grow up through that. So it's the same thing. Same thing as doing bale grazing like this. So if that's your goal, is to regenerate the ground, you might actually be better off bale grazing. But if your goal is to have consistent grass year after year, so let's say I desperately needed this paddock next year, I might want to unroll on this paddock. That might be more beneficial. But think of it this way as well. If I unrolled this hay, this round bale is going to last these guys, my whole herd, 3 days. 3 days for one round bale. What if I unrolled it? Would it be 3 days? Would it be 4? Would it be 2? If they were able to waste more of it, if they were able to leave more of it behind. Now, I guess I shouldn't say waste because a lot of folks would argue with me in that regard too, that it's never wasting hay. All it is adding extra fertilizer to your soils. But if I need the hay to feed the cows, is it technically a waste? Because a lot of folks make their living with cows. So if these cows start going downhill with their body conditioning, is that a good thing or a bad thing? So that's kind of what I mean by some of this is it all depends on your goals. A lot of folks will get really wound up about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, why it's better, what's better. But they don't realize that some people have different goals than others, and it depends on what your goals are to what you should actually do. Isn't that cute? Mama licking baby. So that's why I say it all depends on, and it depends on too what you're able to do equipment wise. So for example, a lot of folks will say, Well, a little 250cc four-wheeler will pull one of these round bales. Okay. Not last winter. Not for me. I guarantee you weren't doing that last winter. We froze 1 week. All winter last winter. 1 week. From Christmas, basically Christmas to New Year's, we froze. It was like 20 degrees out, so it froze solid. But every other time, it was muddy and wet and miserable. So please explain to me how a four-wheeler carrying one of these big 4x5 round bales that weighs at least 800 pounds up a slope that I have here that's, let's say, 3 to 6 degrees. You're not doing that. Well, then go to the top. That cornfield up there is staying until December. How do I bale graze this? We'll go somewhere else. What if you can't? What if you're surrounded by cornfield? What if that landscape there is at the bottom? There's a creek that runs through there, and this portion down here in between these two cows is really swampy. So then what do you do? You know, that's why I say, you can't always just go based on what some expert tells you to do, because it doesn't make any sense for an expert who doesn't know your land, who doesn't know your goals, who doesn't know anything to be telling you what to do. They can help you. They can guide you. I've asked questions to guys like Steve Kenyon. He's answered my questions very appropriately and with lots of knowledge, so I definitely cannot argue that. But my goals are maybe different than his. My abilities are definitely different than his. He has a lot of experience where I've only been doing this for 3-4 years. So it really just depends. I like bale grazing. It's easier for me. It's better for me in my operation. And ultimately, I couldn't care less what other people think of my operation. It's me. It's my cows. It's my land. Yeah, this looks bad, but you know what's worse? Cows dying of thirst. Well, after all that morbid talk, let's just have a great day, guys. Enjoy yourselves. I'll see you on the next one.